Hello and good morning. Phil Thatch here. Heather is in the car because it's very cold, about 3 degrees Celsius. And we are traveling today on the Icefields Parkway in Banff. And our first stop has been right here at the Crowfoot Glacier Overlook. And as you can see, it is a sight to behold. The glacier part is over there to the left, or just behind me there, and I came out and made a panorama of this entire mountain range. I used the Canon R6 Mark II for this panorama, and I used the 24 to 105 f4L lens at 24 millimeters. I can't remember how many shots. It was 5 or 6, maybe 7, and hopefully that comes out, and if so, we will look at that right now. Here is the panorama there of Crowfoot Glacier. Turned out pretty good. This is 24 millimeters 1/60th of a second f8, ISO 100 with the 24 to 105, and you can see because it's a multi-shot panorama, there's lots of detail in it. Okay, we're about 2 kilometers down the road from where we were last time, and just up here is the Bow Lake pull-off. And there's a little trail that comes down right by the water. And I came down here and I just came down here, I was gonna make a handheld shot of this mountain. And I had the 24 to 105 on, and I ended up making a handheld panorama because I thought it was really beautiful. But really the best part is this mountain right here. And I wanted, because I'm right by the water, as you can see, I wanted to do a long exposure and smooth that out. So I went back up the hill, got my tripod, switched lenses to the 14 to 35, and I'm making about a 15 millimeter shot now. And I have the 10 stop neutral density filter on, and this is a 25-second shot at f11 ISO 100 of just this mountain with the beautiful morning light on it. We're only about an hour past sunrise now, and hopefully it's going to turn out nice. This is also a panorama. This one was handheld, and I'm pretty happy with it, except the waves didn't stitch just right in this area. So that's unfortunate. This is f8 ISO 200, 1/125th of a second, and 24 millimeters. Here's the long exposure shot, 25 seconds f11, 16 millimeters on the 14 to 35. This is ISO 100. I just love how a long exposure can just totally slick the water, and you can even see through the water. I don't have a polarizer on, but you can see the rocks through the water in the shallower areas. And I loved the way the light was shining on this mountain. So very happy with this shot. We stopped at the very next pull-off, and there's this lodge with this red roof on it and the sun shining right on it, and I thought it was really beautiful, so I used the 14 to 35 and made a quick shot of it. Here's the 17 millimeter f8 shot of the lodge there at Bow Lake, and this is 1/320th of a second and ISO 100. I loved the way the light was shining on that red roof. I wish the mountain was a little bit higher than the roof, although it is interesting how from where I'm standing, the roof of the lodge kind of mimics the shape of the mountain, but I wish it was a little bit higher above it. Otherwise, I'm happy with the shot. It looks like they were doing laundry. You can see some steam coming off of the laundry vent here. Glad we stopped at this location. I'm still in the area now, the same pull-off where Bow Lake Lodge is, and I've come back a ways through the parking lot and scampered down here, found a way to get right by the water. And I made a few shots pointing in that direction with kind of a sun star in them, and they may be okay, but I think the shots I'm gonna like the best are the ones that are pointing in this direction. And I've got the 10 stop filter on, and I'm doing some somewhat long exposure, the 8 seconds, 10 seconds, something along those lines. There's a lot of mountains in various stages of light that kind of blend together well, I think. Not a lot of clouds today, maybe virtually no clouds, which is not helping, but I'm still enjoying these shots. There was a bunch of water vapor coming up off of the lake in this shot, and this is 1/500th. I figured if I did a long exposure, it would just look like mush. So I did a faster exposure to kind of capture what this water vapor looked like coming up off of the lake. And the sun's shining on it bright, pretty close to overexposed right here, but not completely. But I do love the way these mountains kind of get from big to small in terms of the amount of light on them and their size, or their perspective size. Kind of balances the picture out. Really cool. This is 35 millimeters, 1/500th f8 ISO 100, cropped to a 3:1, one of my favorite Nick Carver style aspect ratios. Now this is a long exposure. This is 8 seconds, 16 millimeters f10 ISO 100 of kind of the same scene as the last shot, except for in the last shot, this mountain was at the far right and this one was not in the shot. So now we've come to Peyto Lake, which has a little bit of a hike to get down to where you can see it. And we are doing that hike now. We'll see you there. So when you get to the end of the trail, there's this boardwalk porch, for lack of a better word, and it comes right down to here. And right as I start this clip, looks like we got a bus arriving. Gets kind of crowded here, and then the crowd leaves, and then it gets crowded again. But it is definitely beautiful. I made a few shots with the 14 to 35. This is a 14 millimeter handheld shot at f8 looking down from the overlook platform at Peyto Lake. Beautiful blue glacier fed lake. We stopped and rolled through Silverhorn Campground, and we've seen on YouTube videos these red chairs that you'll find in various places in the park. And this is the first pair of red chairs that we've seen, so we decided we had to have a seat in these red chairs. How do they feel, Heather?
It's comfortable. It's a little wet.
She said it's comfortable and a little wet. They are dewy. There was frost on a lot of things this morning, including a little bit on the boardwalk walking down to Peyto Lake just a few minutes ago. Here we are in the red chairs with the mountains in the background and our rental Volkswagen in the background as well. And we're looking up at a mountain in the other direction. This is 20 millimeters on the 14 to 35. Obviously I used a timer and a tripod for this shot. 1/400th f8 ISO 125. We've been admiring this one mountain peak that kind of is pointed but curves over a little bit and reminds us of the Sorting Hat from the Harry Potter movies and books. And while we were at the camping area where we just got a shot of us sitting in the chairs, I came down right by the creek and got a shot of the Sorting Hat Mountain and 2 or 3 of the peaks to the left of it that are attractive. Used the 35 millimeter end of the 14 to 35. It's a great lens for this area. And here's the shot down by the creek of the mountains, with this particular mountain reminding me of the Harry Potter Sorting Hat. This is 35 millimeters, 1/125th of a second, f10, and ISO 100. I'm stopped here now at the side of Waterfowl Lake, still using the 14 to 24. I'm shooting at about 20 millimeters. This amazing peak here, much taller than all the rest. Waterfowl Lake's not very far across. It's not very wide. And so in order to get the entire reflection of the mountain, I had to put my tripod up pretty tall. I would rather have had a nice low angle shot, but the high angle shot pretty much gets the whole reflection in. So that's what I did. Using the 10-stop filter, and I think my exposure was 10 or 12 seconds. Here's a 10-second reflection shot of that beautiful mountain. I wish I knew its name. This is 20 millimeters f10 ISO 100, and again it is at f10. We stopped at another pull-off here on the side of the Icefields Parkway, and the parking area stops way back there, but I came all the way down here. There's going to be a guardrail in my shot, unfortunately, but this mountain range is directly in front of us, and it has direct sunlight on it. I started out with the idea of doing a panorama, and I came down here with the 14 to 35, and 35 was too short. So I went back to the car and put the 24 to 105 on, and I made 2 panoramas at different focal lengths. We'll see which one of those comes out. And then just in case the panorama didn't come out, I made I switched the camera back to horizontal. I was vertical for the panoramas. I switched the camera back to horizontal and tried to get the whole scene in one shot. So one of those 3 surely will come out, and maybe more than one. Let's take a look at them now. I ended up liking the second of the panoramas. This one's 79 millimeters multi-shot panorama, 1/160th of a second, f10 and ISO 100. I liked the trees in the foreground, and I loved the mountains in the background. I wish this contrail wasn't in the clouds, but I couldn't take it out without messing up the rest of the clouds, so I just left it. The contrail and the guardrail are kind of parts of what you see there. We stopped at Saskatchewan Crossings, which has a restaurant. It's kind of halfway across the Icefields Parkway. And I liked this Canadian flag here. It's really cool. And we made pictures of it with mountains in the background. We had to kind of wait till the wind had it blown out to make the shot. So let's look at those. Here's the Canada flag there at the Saskatchewan Crossing Lodge. We ate there. It was pretty good. And I like the snow-covered mountains in the background and the trees. Just a cool shot. It was fun to make it. This is 76 millimeters with the 24 to 105, 1/200th of a second f10, and ISO 100.
So check this shit out. So we were driving down this is the Icefields Parkway, right? And there was a little sign that was like Rampart Creek over here and this little pull off. And I was like, we probably don't need to stop there. And then we drove past, and in unison, Phil and I went, oh no. So we turned around, and that's Phil down there.
Well, we found a creek right on the side of the road called Rampart Creek, and I am kind of in the middle of it here. I'm shooting a 24 millimeter shot with a circular polarizer and a 3-stop f14. I think it's 0.8 of a second or 1/8 of a second, something like that. Using the 24 to 105 f4, and that's kind of my shot. The water is really beautiful. It's got a little bit of a blue tint to it, and the rocks have a beautiful, almost coppery color where they're wet, and when they're dry, they're very white. And the creek just flows down the mountain and through these tunnels, and there's Heather, and you can see the traffic going by. It's really beautiful. It's right here on the side of the road in the Canadian Rocky Mountains. Here's the 24 millimeter shot I made at the creek. This is 1/6 of a second f14. I'm using a tripod and ISO 100. I'm down here beside this beautiful creek. It's just absolutely beautiful. And there's lots of mountains over here, but the one that I really like is the one deep in the background there. I don't know if I've got it in the frame or not. And I like that with the trees in the foreground and this beautiful creek. And way up there, you may see Heather in our Volkswagen rental car. And up there, I didn't like the composition. But down here, you can't see the beautiful turquoise blue of the water because you need to be up a little bit. So I'm going to continue to hunt and try to find the perfect composition with layers of all sorts of awesomeness. I ended up climbing back up and shooting from this rock right here. It still isn't high enough to get the beautiful color of the water like I'd like, but when I do get the beautiful color of the water, I've got all these trees and things that I don't like in the foreground. So anyway, I think the shot's still going to be beautiful, but I wish I had like a step ladder that I could climb up. I don't know, or maybe cut those trees down. That's probably frowned upon. Here's the first shot. It's a vertical shot, 105 millimeters with the 24 to 105. This is from the top of the hill, and I loved the layers of this with the with the creek and one mountain going this way and another mountain going this way. There's even some interesting color right through here, perhaps some vegetation on this mountain, and then the mountains get rocky at the top, and there's this unique looking pinnacle here. But something I didn't like about it, so I went down to the bottom and I made this version, which I kind of like as well. This is 72 millimeters, 1/320th, f11, ISO 100. And then I climbed back up to the top of the hill by where the car park is, and I made this shot. I finally embraced these trees on the right. I was kind of disappointed that you couldn't see the bottom of this tree and you couldn't see the top of this tree. And once I said, you know what, I'm not going to let that bother me, this ended up being my favorite version of this composition. And this is 74 millimeters, 1/160th, f11, and ISO 100 with the 24-105 lens. Well, we stopped on the hairpin turn here on the Icefields Parkway. Cars come from way over there and do a 180 and then start climbing the mountain. It's pretty crazy, but the mountains in the background, as you can see, are absolutely beautiful. And so I thought, well, maybe I should try to get a panorama of this. And I tried to do it at 24 millimeters with the 24-105, and it just wasn't wide enough to get the mountain in on this side. As you can see, that's pretty high up there. So I put on the 14-24 and I tried to get a panorama of it. I did one or two maybe from outside of the turn, and then I did another one from inside the turn across the road and went down into the middle. And we'll see if any of those come out. Here's the multi-shot panorama, 15 millimeters with the 14-35, 1/250th of a second, f8 and ISO 100. Look at that sweeping hairpin curve. It's just a really huge hairpin, and it's really cool to have the whole thing in one shot in these beautiful mountains in the background. And my next panorama, I walked across the road and down into this area where I have my pointer now, and I made another panorama. So this is that, and because I'm closer and I'm not having to shoot so wide that I keep the road in, this one's 20 millimeters, and you see these mountains in the background. And it's hard to tell how big these mountains are, but just to give you an idea of the scale, this little black dot over here is a car. I mean, those mountains are huge. And also I want you to remember the top of this mountain right here and the top of this mountain right here, because they'll come up in a future photograph. Okay, so we have come on around the hairpin turn now, and we're up the mountain a little bit, and there's an overlook where we can look right down at the road that we were just on. There was some construction at a bridge, and you can see that in the shot, and you can see the beautiful creek with the blue water. It's really something. And I got a shot with the 14-24 from here on the wrong side of the guardrail. Now here we are around the hairpin curve and up the mountain a pretty good ways, looking back down. The creek that was featured in a photograph a few photographs back is right in this area. We had just gone across this bridge that is before the hairpin curve. They're doing some construction there, so we got tied up in traffic. And once again, remember this and this. I ran into a couple and they said they had an app that goes by the GPS coordinates and tells them what to look for, and it talked about a waterfall from right here at this overlook, and I never would have seen it if I hadn't spoken to them. But after I spoke to them, I did see it, so I put the 100-500 on and got a shot of that. This is the waterfall that is way across from the mountain we were on and coming down another mountain. This is 159 millimeters, 1/200th f11 and ISO 100. We stopped at the next overlook, and you've got a much clearer shot of the waterfall from here. So I made a couple of shots of that, and then while I had the 100-500 on, I made some detail shots of the tops of some of these mountains. And this is from the next pull-off. This is 135 millimeters with the 100-500. This is 1/250th of a second, f9 and ISO 100. This is a detail shot of the tops of one of the mountains that I was pointing out to you earlier. This is 135 millimeters, 1/250th and f9. And here is another area that I pointed out to you earlier, another 135 millimeter f9 shot. And this is another area that's to the left of those. You can't really see it in some of the earlier pictures, so I didn't point it out to you as much, but while I had the long lens on, why not make some detail shots? We stopped at another pull-off. This one said something about a creek, but the little gravel road goes down about 100 yards and then there's a closed gate, so we stopped. But at the same time, I love the look of those two mountain peaks there in the background, and I still had the 100 to 500 on, so I made about a 5 or 6 shot panorama of those two mountains, and I think it might turn out pretty cool. Let's take a look. This is the handheld panorama that I made with the 100 to 500. I absolutely love the way this turned out. This is 100 millimeters, 1/250th, f9 and ISO 100. And once again, this is a handheld multi-shot panorama. Let's see, here's a sign. 1935, the glacier came all the way to here. The first sign was 1895 and it was way back. Here's another sign, 1942, the glacier came all the way to here. Now the glacier's way, 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 way back there.
Still huge, but
1948.
look at that water.
Yeah, that's awesome. Big dog.
Turn left, then take the first left.
I didn't make any photographs of the glacier. It's amazing, but not extremely photogenic. And the rest of the Icefields Parkway was closed due to a recent fire in the Jasper half of the parkway. So that is the end of our Icefields Parkway video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit thumbs up. Thanks a bunch. Have a great day. Bye-bye.